Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Blade HQ exclusive Kershaw static cleaver in G10 and D2. I'll link this guy right down below. There's another version of this that's ATR 13 MOV and a steel frame lock, which is a hard pass. This is a little more interesting. Thank you very much to Lucas for sending this in for review. And thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. There's a link for Patreon right down below. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this guy. Overall length of the G10 static coming in at 6.8 inches overall. Blade length is pretty close to exactly 3 inches, and then your cutting edge is coming in at about 2.5 inches. So be careful if you live in an area with a 3-inch blade law. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and Rat 2. So you can see there, closer to the size of the Rat 2, but still just a little bit smaller. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and Spyderco Para 3? Hang on, I'll move that down. Closer to the size of the Para 3, but still definitely smaller. And last but not least, the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Benchmade Bug Out. Again, smaller than both. How about we do carry profile? So, sorry, putting the bug out away. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3, you can see here, this is just a little bit thinner. Not anything substantial, but a little bit thinner than the Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3, it's definitely shorter than both. At maximum height, which is going to be up here, it's still not quite as tall as the PM2 and Para 3. So if you've ever carried these knives, it's not really a big deal. The flipper doesn't make that much of a difference on this particular knife. Materials, G10, steel, and D2. I don't believe we have any milling on the inside, but I'll take a look real quick. No, it's just steel liners on the inside there. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. Get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that says my tools. The pivots, T8. Everything else is going to be T6. That's pretty much what I expected. Not a deal breaker. I wish everything was T8, but it's not, so okay. Just be careful. Make sure you've got good tools, and you should be good to go. Weight on this guy. I'm going to guess this weighs about 3 ounces, maybe 3.5. 3.17. Okay, it's pretty close to ultra lightweight. I don't really care that much about ratios. It's not really going to be that big of a deal, you know, carrying this. I wouldn't recommend it in athletic shorts, but pretty much anything else I think will work just fine. So no big deal there. And something that I forget to do, at least until a certain point in every video, is measure the blade stock thickness. So let's go ahead and do that. Blade stock thickness on this guy is 115 thousandths. So there you go. All right, so this is a flipper, manual flipper running on bearings from Kershaw in their budget line. This is not made in the United States. This is made in China, so it's going to be an inexpensive knife. Something that we usually see in this territory from Kershaw are assisted knives, and this knife is not assisted, so that's something that I think will make some people very happy. The knife has a kind of a pointy bird's beak of a flipper tab, but you know what? It works, and the D10 is good, and it's got decent action considering what territory we're in here. When I got this knife, I was like, wow, it's totally falls shut, but then I realized the blade was not perfectly centered, so I cranked the on the pivot until I could get it to center up and be solid. And so now the action is just kind of about what I expect, right? You kind of have to give it a couple of wiggles, and perhaps you could adjust that, add some nano oil, whatever you wanted, but it's like, do you really want to go that far out of your way for a, I'll tell you right now, $50 Kershaw? Nah. Disengagement of the lock bar, unfortunately, is kind of frustrating because they only cut out that much. They leave this sliver, right? Give us a scallop here so we can, you know, approach it from the side. This is uncomfortable to disengage. After just 5 or so times, you find that the skin on your thumb is going to wear out from pushing down and then in. I've got a lot of dead skin on my thumb, but it's peeling it all up from that exactly. So that kind of stinks. It's also real close to a double clutch, right? Here's where the detent ball is passing up on the face of the blade, and it's just ever so slightly up on the blade by the time that flipper tab is contacting my thumb. So you might have to mess around with that a little bit. It's really not that big of a deal. Peel ply textured G10 is fine. Edges are nicely chamfered down. Truthfully, Fit and finish is okay. Nothing, it's about what I'd expect for this territory. We've got a place to mount the pocket clip for left-handed carry, even though it is a right-handed liner lock. I'm right-handed. You can see here left-handed. It's not really that difficult to manipulate. It's just frustrating getting your thumb in there because of how that liner lock is shaped. This is a knife where if you choke back, you're going to have your pinky sliding off the edge, which is something that bothers me, but it doesn't necessarily bother everybody. You will feel that pocket clip. Whoops. You will feel that pocket clip because it has this big old gooseneck thing on it. I don't think pocket clips need to stick up quite that high. I think they do just fine like this, right? And they'll still rise to meet the general thickness of most pocket seams. So that's kind of a bother. And it's huge because it's a generic Kershaw clip, right? So it's the type of clip that's meant to fit probably lots of different Kershaws. It just needed a smaller clip. But then again, it's like if they had to make a custom clip for this guy, truthfully, I think if they're going to use this, they should just make a series of smaller clips that look exactly like this, but they're like 75% the length, and then just attach them to their knives that are smaller. But that probably would add a little bit of cost, right? Instead of $50, it would be $53.99, right? I don't know, something like that. But yeah, you're going to feel that because it's right. It's like it's catching you right here if you're going to choke back on it. Choked up, you can still feel it. It's not quite as bad. This area right here is actually a pretty plentiful forward choil. Some people love these. Some people hate them. I like them. This is how I'm going to grip it because I don't like... I mean, most of the time I'm going to grip it like I'm just going to be opening packages and stuff. But if I'm really going to, do heavy cuts and stuff with it, which I think this knife is plenty capable of, I'm going to choke up on it. I'm going to put my finger in there, which you can honestly get it all the way in there without really feeling like it's in danger of running up on the blade. So I do appreciate that. But with it being a flipper, honestly, the flipper is just kind of still in the way. I always, whenever there's a knife like this, it's a combination flipper with a forward choil, I can't help but wonder if they had just done thumb studs, this entire area would be a lot more open and it would be a lot more comfortable. But they have a flipper on there and it's not really hurting anything, so I can't complain too much. The blade is a Cleaver style blade, which, okay, you don't have much of a tip. There's a lot of material out here, so it's going to be plenty strong. It's just not, for a lot of knife tasks, you do need a tip. So you're working with more of a triangle up here, but you can get it to work if you need to. There's a flat that carries out about 85% the length of the blade and carries not necessarily any crazy thickness out here, but because of the shape, the geometry of the blade, it's going to be plenty strong. I doubt that the tip will snap before the pivot fails if you're doing something stupid with your knife. So the answer to that is don't do anything stupid with your knife. The edge is not a laser beam, right? It comes down to kind of a surprisingly thick cutting edge considering the blade stock thickness is only 116 thousandths, but it'll still cut. Got a card over here I used in another review here just a little bit ago. It's cutting, but it's also kind of tearing. You can see that it's kind of like lipping this over to the side. So the edge isn't anything spectacular, but then again, I don't think this was necessarily meant to be a spectacular knife. But then again, for $50, you definitely can get performance blades. I mean, main competitors here being CJRB and Civivi, especially Civivi, grinding their blades incredibly thin. You really can get some, a more performance edge at this price point for sure. Will the blades have geometry that yields more durability in those Civivi blades? No. I mean, you're going to lose geometric durability, I guess, in favor of cutting performance. But that makes more sense for a knife, right? So this is like, wow, cool, Cleaver, and then when you go to cut with it, you're like, mediocre. So, it's kind of a lot of the actually some of Kershaw's stuff, like the, I think it was the Cannonball, that had a pretty thin edge. I wish they would grind all these, I wish they'd grind them in a way that yielded just thinner behind the edge, but this one's not the case. It's pretty mediocre. The bevels seem to be, pretty even on this one, so I can't complain too much. This has also been used a little bit, but the edge still feels about what I expect for a factory edge from Kershaw. Blade's okay. I mean, I can't say too much. This is an in-house design, indicated by that logo right there. It says 3445 G10. Kai, D2, and then China, which is unfortunately the type of stuff they have to put on all of their blades. Edges or corners of the blade are knocked down. They're actually chamfered and then further knocked down by the fact that it's tumbled, and the finish looks okay. Nothing spectacular here. Show side pivot on this side, a couple of screws. We have a couple of very simple standoffs right here. Flip it over to this side. Of course, pocket clip and the adjustment head. We already kind of talked about the clip. They did not recess this clip into the scale. I don't know, they really want to complain too much. It always looks better when they do that, but they didn't do it. Stop pin located right here, and we do have some shouldering, so that's nice. The blade is centered now that I have adjusted it. On lockout, it is locking out completely and totally solid with no lock stick, and there's no detent lash. So there's a lot of competition at the $50 price point. This is a knife that's good enough for 50 bucks. If you love how this looks and you're like, I just want to make sure that it's made well and you think it's going to work. Yeah, it's going to work, right? You really have to want this knife specifically. As far as 50 bucks goes, you can definitely make worse choices. There's nothing ultra spectacular here. It's D2 and G10. Sometimes I mess that up and say D10 and G2. D2 and G10 running on bearings. It's a flipper that's got a decent D10. It's got decent ergonomics, right? The pocket clip is kind of a hot spot. This is very similar to a lot of budget knives that I've been reviewing here lately. It's okay. It is definitely not at, top tier when it comes to this price point. There are knives that cost less money that will perform much better, that just have a better overall design. But there's nothing here for me to just be like, no, it's just kind of, this knife is going to go in my cheap knives I like playlist, but I'm not going to put it in my most recommended knives because there are just better, I think there are better knives out there all the way around. If somebody was going to ask me, I've got 50 bucks, what pocket knife should I check out? While this is fine, I'm not going to come down on anybody who made this choice. It's far from my first. It's far from my top 50. There's just too many knives out there that are pretty good or really good that I would suggest over this one. So if you have already purchased this knife and you're watching this review for reaffirmation, you didn't do anything wrong. If you're watching my review and you're like, I don't care if Complex thinks it's boring, I kind of like it, I kind of want to pick it up. Yeah, it's made well enough. I think you're probably going to like it. It's just not something that I want to tell people to rush out and buy. I'll link it down below anyway if you guys want to check it out. It's definitely better than the steel frame lock version with HCR 13 MOV. No more steel frame locks. No more steel frame locks. No more HCR 13 MOV. Barf, barf, barf. No, thank you. These types of, the liner lock and D2, these types of things are better. That's pretty much all I can say here. I am happy for the opportunity to take a look at it. So thank you again, Lucas, for doing that. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.